What if the most powerful thing that you can bring to a coaching conversation is not the questions, which so many coaches are trained to believe is it? What if it's not the frameworks or the models or the system? What if it's not your expertise, your years of training and experience and certification? What if it's none of those things? That the most powerful thing that you can bring is actually the quality of your presence. So in this video, what I want to do is I want to share a few what I call transformative practices with you that are really practices for the human who is on a transformational journey, but they're also extraordinarily powerful as practices in a transformational coaching space because they can shape the entire experience that people have with you and really help them to touch an even deeper place within themselves where much more can be revealed and profound change then can actually happen at a core level of mind and being. Welcome to the Deep Coach channel, where we talk about all things related to the journey of human transformation and transformational coaching. I'm the founder of the Center for Transformational Coaching, and we actually teach a form of coaching there called deep coaching. And what deep coaching is intended to do, like what I envision for this work is that it really creates a space in which people are able to connect with the deepest part of themselves. And in order to do that, there has to be a quality of space that really may be vibrationally, experientially very different than what they would experience in a transactional coaching session or a developmental coaching session, which are really highly kind of objective driven types of coaching and results driven types of coaching. What I'm really concerned about is creating a space in which people feel, you could say, so safe that they're willing to open up to you the deepest, truest, realest parts of themselves. Yeah. And to do that in a way in which transformative change then can begin to occur. So it's not just revelation for revelation's sake, but they do have to feel that they are with you, held, immensely held by the quality of your presence. So transformational work, deep coaching work, to really go to the deepest places with each other becomes much less about what you do as a coach and much more about who you're being in that space with another human being or even with a group of other human beings. So I want to share with you a few practices. These are practices that I have worked with for years personally, and these are practices that we teach in our coursework because they form a kind of cocoon. I like to say they create the optimal conditions in which transformation can unfold with the greatest amount of ease and joy. Because if you've listened to some of my other videos where I talk about the transformational journey as a human experience, you'll come to have known that transformation itself is anything but easeful and joyful. Oh, yes, there will be moments of those because we touch the most brilliant, beautiful, magnificent part of ourselves. We touch the most authentic and real part of ourselves as we journey. But along the way, we have to confront so much of our shadow, so much of what I call our personal gravity, those aspects of our egoic mind and our kind of human condition, you could say, that really hold us down, that keep us back from progressing or evolving our selfhood into much higher possibilities. So we're looking at how we create this cocoon in which transformation can unfold more easily for people, in which they feel so safe, as I said, that they'll touch the deepest part of themselves. So one of the first practices we work with is the practice of slowing it all down. Now, the actual practice, the full title of the practice that we work with is slow it all down and sync with the rhythm of life and spirit. Those very natural, optimal rhythms that sustain our highest well-being. Now, those rhythms kind of exist, if you will, but modern life, the pace of modern life, the rush to get things done and to have it now can definitely interfere with our ability to really stay connected and grounded in that optimal rhythm. And when that happens, Things like stress set in, and we can feel overwhelmed. Ultimately, through that ongoing dis-ease, we begin to experience disease. So this practice of slowing it all down and really syncing with these natural optimal rhythms of life is one of the conditions that support transformative growth. It's one of the conditions that really support people to take a breath and to begin to drop into a deeper part of themselves where they can access more than just surface level information, where they can really begin to connect with their emotions, their deeper thoughts, some of their shadowy behaviors, and begin to illuminate or reveal that in the coaching conversation. And this really is fertile ground for transformational work. If your sessions or the work you do with anyone is really always about reaching an objective by the end of your time together, if it is very objective driven, results oriented, then you are actually thwarting the capacity for people to really just sit with and experience an inner reality that can only be tapped into when there is a kind of massive breath in the space. Yeah. So slowing it all down, even as I'm doing here in this video, just kind of that deeper breath, and you can feel it when you are creating that for another person. And this is a quality of your presence, your own way of being. When it literally embodies that spaciousness, breath, not needing to get somewhere, to make something happen, to have that breakthrough moment, to have that aha, to allow a much more natural unfolding to happen. People will relax in your presence. And as they relax, they begin to open. They begin to reveal more. There's a safety element that can come in. So this is the first practice. Slow it all down and sync with the rhythm of life and spirit. And something you can practice for yourself just in your daily life is beginning to notice the speed at which you're doing everything, the speed at which you talk, the speed at which you walk, eat, send text messages, reply to text messages, just that general busyness of life. And if you're in the business of truly supporting other people to access deeper parts of themselves and to create these cocoons in which transformation can unfold with greater ease, if you're in that business, then it really is something you can learn to master first for yourself. Like, you need to become the one who embodies spaciousness. It cannot just be something you attempt to bring into the occasional session. People will sense that if you're not really aligned to this work, they'll sense it. And eventually, you're going to give way to the old patterns of your own coaching work or your own process, which is going to be ramped up if it's not embodied. So begin to notice it in yourself, how it would look like for you to begin to slow everything down and really sync with a more natural rhythm, and notice what it does for your own well-being and for the quality of your own life experience. The second transformative practice that is an incredibly powerful one, and yet which is really difficult for many people, is a practice I call letting there be silence. Silence. Now, in conventional coaching, most people are trained or taught to pause, to give enough space where a person can really think on a question and not just rapid fire things at them. So we're taught to pause, but generally that kind of silence is fairly brief, but it's also just a matter of keeping your mouth shut. There's really nothing going on in that silence. But there are actually new dimensions to silence. One are extended periods of silence, where you're really allowing the spaciousness of that experience to expand to the point where silence as a felt experience can come in. And sometimes that may mean sitting there in silence for a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. I have actually sat in silence with some people for upwards of 30 to 40 minutes. And people say, well, are you just staring at each other? Are you just, keeping your mouth shut? And actually, that's not it at all. In those extended periods of silence, they are what I call active silence. So we could say keeping our mouth shut is passive silence, because all we're doing is sitting and kind of waiting for a person to process. And normally in those moments, we're sitting thinking up our next question anyway. Like we're not in the silence with them. We're not, you could say, imbuing the silence with any quality of presence or mind. It's just keep the mouth shut, maybe listen deeply to what the person is saying, yes, and that does then give rise to what we may say or do next. But we're not just letting the silence actually do a kind of work on our behalf. But reality is, when you get to the point where you can foster what I call sacred silence, active silence, there's a quality of spirit, there's a quality of spiritual energy, there's a quality of presence that comes in which something really alive is happening in such silence. So I'm not saying you begin there with this as a personal practice. The invitation is just to begin with possibly keeping your mouth shut a little longer. Just seeing what it would feel like to sit in silence with another person. And it's contemplative silence. It's silence that allows them to just listen more deeply within themselves. And in fact, you could say, well, what are you doing in that silence? Is perhaps you're listening more deeply within yourself. And from that deeper place within yourself, you're listening into the depth of another human being. I like to say I listen from my deepest sense of source into the deepest source in another, from the depth of my being into the depth of being in another. And if my mind is active, trying to think of what to say or do next, just active with the situation, the drama, the resolution, that sense of listening deeply within myself so that I can listen deeply into another, that just leaves the room. That's just not happening. But again, in deep transformative work, we want to create spaces in which other people are able to listen, to tap into the deepest, realest, truest part of themselves, no matter how painful some of that stuff may be that they have to face. And to just let in that space a kind of a rising of inner knowing happen. So we're not just having people think, 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 think. And this ties to the third transformative practice that I'll speak to in a few minutes, but not just think, 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 think. It's like listen, sense, discern what's alive. And again, it ties to the first practice because it's very difficult to just drop into silence if you're not already creating a fabric of experience that is spacious in and of itself, and that your spaciousness. So the best silence is organic. It's not forced. Like, why don't we just sit in silence? And then you often will get someone saying, look a little perplexed, like, oh, okay, I guess we can sit in silence. You've just asked me to do that. It's almost more like an extension of spaciousness. And it feels organic, like, yes, let's just sit in this together. The profundity of this moment, the sacredness of this moment, or even the pain or the sorrow of this moment, and just hold it without anything needing to be different. And as I like to say when I teach this work, let the silence do the work. Because very often in that, people are feeling held by something, a quality of presence, a quality of being, a quality of heart. It kind of find its way into the human being who's allowing themselves to touch and connect with these aspects of their life and their life experience. So practice that. Let there be silence. Learn where your edge with the comfort is, because I guarantee you're going to hit your edge very, very quickly. And from that edge, you're going to have to learn to look at, well, what is it then that is thwarting my ability to sit in silence? And very often it'll be something like a little fear. How am I adding value? What is the client doing? I can't get a sense of what they're thinking. Are they thinking now that I'm not adding any value? How is this adding value? All of that thought, that fear-based concern thought will trigger you, and you will think of something to do to close the silence down because it's uncomfortable for you. And if your client or the people you're working with are not used to it as well, because there's no quality of you that is spacious, that allows silence, and guess what will happen? Your clients might come in and say, what's this all about? Are you still there? What's going on? Why are you so quiet? So yes, some communication may need to be had about the value of just allowing that to be. But it is a mighty, mighty transformative practice for you as an individual on your own journey of awakening and transformation to connect with a deeper part of yourself. And it's a mighty, mighty practice to be able to bring in to a session or any work you do with people who are on that deeper path of self-exploration. The third transformative practice I'll share with you, and by the way, there are many of these practices. I've got at least 9 in total, 10 that I teach that are all part of what I call creating the fabric of the cocoon that creates the optimal conditions in which transformation can then unfold. So as you even apply these practices into your own personal life, you'll notice things will start to shift for you. So the third practice is to, and I say, coach more from the heart, less from the head. Now let's flip that to make this applicable to life as well. So live more from the heart, less from the head. Now you've often heard the saying, just follow your heart. And there's reason for that. There's a quality of the heart, and let's put it this way, there's a quality of the heart's intelligence that is not within pure intellect. There's an intelligence there, but more than that, there's a field of awareness that becomes possible when we are ourselves operating more from heart space. This is the spiritual heart, let's put it that way, the spiritual heart, not necessarily the physical heart. So we're coaching more from this intelligence that is born of the heart. And we're dropping the need for the intellect to be the driver of the show. And this is another incredibly challenging practice for coaches, because so much of what they do is think. In fact, many coaches are taught, and I've had conversations around this with students, they say, well, aren't coaches meant to be thinking partners? So right there, when you hear from wherever, coaches are meant to be thinking partners, you adopt that and you put on your thinking hat. And now the experience, it doesn't mean that there's no heart, that you're not a caring person, that you don't hold the best in mind for other people, that you don't have compassion or empathy. Because of course, crystalline, pure reason and intelligence doesn't have those qualities of humanity kind of embedded within it. Doesn't mean you don't bring that. But what's running the show is your intellect. And it's thinking. And as this happens, you take your clients into their intellect. So then, naturally, when they come to you with a problem, a challenge, a pain, a sorrow, and I'm speaking here about people who are on a journey of deep inner transformation and awakening, because this is what transformational coaching is positioning itself for. When these people bring these things to you, the intellect will say, I see a problem to be solved. These things are obviously uncomfortable, they're painful, so we must help you solve this. So the session becomes about finding solution or resolution or fixing whatever has been brought in that appears discomforting or painful. But what if, and I'm going to spin everything on its head here, what if these are the absolute natural, necessary experiences or dynamics of deep inner transformation? What if that pain, that sorrow, that challenge, that problem is not actually a problem to be solved, away, fixed, so that people just feel better? What if we take off that thinking hat and we simply access the heart, and all the heart wants to do is be with whatever is arising, to just be with whatever is arising. There's a massive amount of allowance there and acceptance. And we start to learn to see that these challenges and situations are not in our life because we have to necessarily resolve them right away and get out of feeling the discomfort. They may be an invitation to go even deeper within ourselves, to start to look at root cause of our life experiences, why we experience what we experience, and to reveal more and more of root cause. Because that's where the transformative work really happens. It happens at a core level of mind. Some of this stuff is conscious, and much of it is unconscious. It's, in a sense, operating as part of our habitual inner operating systems work. It's on autopilot. But as we go deeper, you'll be surprised as we begin to clear out more of that which kind of blocks our capacity to perceive within. It's like the mind has space to reveal more of what the unconscious mind is up to. So over time, we're revealing, we're illuminating. And as we do that, again, of the heart, We're not revealing and illuminating to solve a problem, to think it away. We're revealing and illuminating so that healing can happen. And healing happens as a effect of the heart's spiritual energy and spiritual intelligence. It's an effect of that. So you could say that love is a healing agent. And as we simply hold of the heart, there's more room for the quality of love as an intelligence, as a field of healing energy to simply begin to do work within the awakening mind. Yeah. So this whole notion of coaching more from the heart, living more from the heart and less from the head is not to say we discard the intellect. The intellect has a massive role. It names things, it labels things, it says, hey, I think this is something we need to look at or attend to. I hear some dots we can connect. The intellect has a role to play. And yes, once in a while, it'll want to solve a problem. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you're doing transformational work and you are locked into your mind and letting it drive the show, believing that it's the intellect that is doing any healing, that is the intellect and its desire to resolve things that is actually going to, enable deep transformative growth, which really is to heal the many, many distortions and falsities and pains and sorrows and heaviness of a life that we've had these experiences in, like the accumulation of a life. If you think that the intellect can heal that away, the intellect can help release that, no. The intellect can point to what is in need of healing. It can point to what we're ready to let go of, to release, and name it. Say, that's a belief, that's a pattern, that's an emotional residue. I'm ready to let that go. That's what it is. But it's the capacity of the heart and that intelligence field that goes to work within the human mind that is the agent of healing. It is the agent of transformation. It is that which allows people to truly outwork and let go stuff that may have been contained within the totality of their being for a lifetime. Because things like core beliefs, things like I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'm not safe, like those core beliefs about who we are, that's kind of embedded in us, not only deep in the unconscious mind, but it's kind of alive in every cell. We carry it as a quality of being in this world. If people are truly ready to let that core stuff go, what does the work? The capacity of the heart. So here's another wonderful practice for yourself, again, in your own life, in the coaching work you do. Coach, live more from the heart, accessing that field of intelligence and awareness and energy, and less from the head, which still has a role to play, but in a sense becomes the servant of the soul. So if you enjoyed this video, as always, the invitation is to subscribe to the Deep Coach channel, where we continue to talk about these very, very important and yet not necessarily well understood aspects of the human transformational journey and how we as transformational workers or coaches or people interested in that field can really, really support this in others. Have a great day.